Good day, everybody. I'm delighted that you are with us today. We're doing a series entitled There is a Place Called. And I've spoken on there is a place called Forward, there is a place called Hope, there is a place called Calvary. Today it's an interesting title because I want to speak on there is a place called Lodebar. I don't know, obviously, what your first name is, and you may be delighted with the name that your parents have given you. You may be wondering as to why they called you that name. For some of you, you may even have changed your name. My first name is Paul, and I'm quite happy with that name. But there is somebody who had a very unusual or interesting name. I can think first of all by a man by the name of Jabez, whose name means pain, trouble, or sorrow. And for him, I suppose, whenever you walked into the room, I wonder if people felt, well, here comes pain, trouble, or sorrow. And if your name has an unusual meaning, it doesn't mean to say that you have to live up to that meaning. A man I want to talk to you about is a man by the name of Mephibosheth. And Mephibosheth's name, let me get this right, from the mouth of the shameful thing. And so whatever your thoughts are concerning the name that your parents gave you, just be pleased today they did not call you from the mouth of the shameful thing. I like to talk about going on a journey, and I reminisce somewhat of some of the journeys that I've been privileged to be able to take. I just want to say that in Wales, there is an absolutely wonderful journey, because in West Wales, this is the only place in the United Kingdom where the coast is a national park. And so just to go on some of the journey of the coast around West Wales, it's an absolutely beautiful journey to take. And there are so many places that you just want to stop off on the way. So many little villages or beaches where you just want to stop and just look at the view or go for a stroll on the beach. Oh, it's an absolutely delightful place to live. Mephibosheth was living in a place called Lodebar. Lo means no, debar means pasture. He was living in a place called no pasture. He was living in a barren place. And so we have this unusual name and an unusual place. From the mouth of the shameful thing, that's what he was called, and he was living in a barren place. The story of Mephibosheth is found in the book of Samuel in the Old Testament of the Bible, and it refers to a king by the name of Saul who really had a hatred for David the psalmist. And Saul and his sons, they had been killed, and David had come to the throne. And it was one thing as a custom in those days, was that when you came to the throne, you made sure that any descendants of a previous king, they would be killed. You can sometimes see not people being killed. You can sometimes see a similar thing today. That when a person, a man or woman, has had a place of authority or leadership, that after many decades, when that has come to an end, sometimes the new person taking over doesn't want the children of the previous leader in any position of ascendancy. Sadly, you can sometimes see that today. But in David's day, it was actually that they would be killed. But that's not what David did. And David's thought, and he spoke it out, was this: is there any descendant of King Saul that is alive today that I can show kindness to? And so somebody by the name of Ziba was sent for, and they remembered Mephibosheth, who as a child had been was lame and had to escape and was in hiding in Lodebar in fear of being killed by King David. So Mephibosheth is sent for. I want to say today, I don't know where you are living. You may be living in an absolute wonderful place that everything in life is going fine for you today. We all today are living in a measure of restriction. But I want to say to you today that if you are living in a barren place, if you're living in an unfruitful place today, I want to say firstly today that grace will find you. Grace found Mephibosheth. Whether you're living in green pastures, whether you're living by still waters, whether you're walking through the darkest valley in your life today, I want to say to you today, the grace of God will find you. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Grace found Mephibosheth in Lodebar, the place of no pasture, the barren place. Grace found him in the hiding place. Grace will find you. Grace will remember you. There was no reason to remember Mephibosheth. There was no list of achievements. There was no power, prestige, or position that people may be remembered by or ranked today. He was lame from childhood. But by God's grace, David the king asked after him. You are not a nobody that nobody noticed. You are a somebody who is included with everybody when rewards and favor are handed out. And it may feel as if everybody else has moved on to pastures green except yourself. But I want to say to you today, grace remembers you. So grace will find you, grace will remember you, and grace will provide for you. In the world today, people look for those who are willing and able. But with God, he is simply looking for those who are willing because he is able. Mephibosheth wasn't able. He wasn't able to be a warrior. He wasn't able to have a key role, he felt, in the palace. But one thing with Mephibosheth, he was willing. And so when David sent his servants to come and to bring Mephibosheth, he came into the palace of the king simply because he was willing and God was able. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. We do not come out of a barren place. We do not come out of a place of no pasture because of our own right, our own strength, some academic ability, wealth, knowledge to get to God. We come to God through the grace of God. By grace we are saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God. Grace will shape you. I am what I am by the grace of God. It's the grace of God that shapes me, and I need to recognize that. There's a Peanuts cartoon, and Lucy is wondering what it would be like to be in charge of the world. And Charlie replies, well, Lucy, where would you start? And Lucy looks straight at Charlie and says, I would start with you. And you can look at those around you today, and you can look at people in the world and think, well, they shouldn't be doing this and they shouldn't be saying that. But the grace of God does not start with everybody else. The grace of God starts with you. The grace of God starts with me today, and it shapes me. Goodness and mercy, said the psalmist, shall follow me all the days of my life. And you can see how goodness can follow. You may do an act of kindness, and from that you can see goodness that follows through that act of kindness. King David showed kindness towards Mephibosheth. He didn't have him killed. He summoned for him. He brought him into the palace. And through that act of kindness, we can see the goodness that followed on after that. But to say that mercy will follow me all the days of my life, I can only describe it like this. If you think when perhaps you were a child and you may be sitting watching the football match And it's that moment your mother wants to come with a hoover and you've got to lift your feet up off the floor for these invisible crumbs that are on the carpet. Your wife may do the same to you today, though my wife, I must say I'm delighted, does not do it when the football match is on. But they come along and hoover up these crumbs that you or I have left behind. And when we go through life, we make decisions, we go here, we do this, we do that. And sometimes we don't realize what we're leaving in our wake. But the mercy of God comes behind us and hoovers up the mistakes that we've made, because God is so gracious to us. So goodness and mercy can follow us all the days of our life. The grace of God will shape you. But we need to be willing. There are some things we may need to let go of. We may need to let go of just some religious experience. We may need to let go of just depending, well, I'm a self-made man or a self-made woman. We may need to just let go of, well, I'm totally summed up by my academic qualifications or the business that I've started from scratch. We need to just let go of, well, I belong to this particular family and it's an important family. We need to release some things and understand that our dependency is through Jesus Christ. You may be lame in thought towards God. You may be lame in your thoughts towards Jesus Christ or following Jesus Christ in life through somebody or some church that you may have crossed their path on the way and it's left you lame. You need to release that. You need to move on from that. That does not mean to say that you let any business go or let any academic qualifications go. It simply means that your hope and purpose in life is found in Jesus Christ. Fifthly and finally, grace will enable you to discover your purpose in life. Mephibosheth was restored to his place in the palace. He sat at the king's table. It was as if he was one of the king's sons. He wasn't just invited to dinner. It wasn't just an invitation to the meal. This was something permanently for him. And we read in the book of John, but as many as received him, to them he gave the power to become the sons of God. Left a place called Lodebar, a place of no pasture, and was now living in a place called grace. And it's exactly the same for every single one of us in life today, that we can leave a barren place. We can leave a place of indifference. We can leave broken dreams. We can leave a family crisis. We can leave just some of the challenges of life that seem to be restricting us. And we can live in a place called grace by the mercy of God towards us. Whether you are rich or poor, whatever your ethnicity, whatever your social standing, the grace of God is there for you today. In closing, let me say this. Mephibosheth ate at the king's table regularly. And when he sat there, he sat alongside the king. He sat with others who at one time would have wanted to kill him because of he was being Saul's grandson. He sat at the king's table. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. And I want to just say to you today, follow Jesus Christ. There is new life in Christ, not a religious experience, but a life in Christ where you move from the place of no pasture to living a life of grace. God bless you this day.